Article 10 discusses our beliefs about sanctification and an important gift from God called entire sanctification. Sanctification is something the Holy Spirit does to believers to make them more like Jesus. The first step in this process is called initial sanctification. This happens when a person gains spiritual life. The Holy Spirit begins living in the believer at this stage and starts the work of making him or her more like Jesus. A further step in this process is entire sanctification, which is something God does that sets a believer free from the desire to sin. When God does this, a believer becomes entirely devoted to God and being obedient to His will. After this, the Holy Spirit continues to make the believer more like Jesus until glorification. Glorification happens when we are in heaven, where we will be fully changed into the image of Christ. Let's go a little deeper into how entire sanctification happens. Before entire sanctification takes place, a believer must entirely consecrate himself or herself to God. This means that a believer must willingly give his or her life to God and start to live only for His will and purposes. Entire sanctification happens through being filled with the Holy Spirit. When this happens, sin is cleaned away from a believer's heart, and the Spirit gives the believer power for life and service. It is available to us because of Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, and is done by grace through faith. It's worth mentioning that this experience is sometimes called Christian perfection, perfect love, heart purity, the baptism with or the infilling of the Holy Spirit, the fullness of the blessing, and Christian holiness. Each of these names speaks to a different part of the experience. It's important to note that having a pure heart does not mean you have a mature character. A pure heart comes from the gift of entire sanctification. A mature character is from the growing done inside a person with the help of God's grace. Entire sanctification will give you a desire to grow spiritually as a follower of Jesus. However, you must purposefully feed this desire to grow through the activities that support spiritual growth. Without this effort by the believer, the gift of entire sanctification can be lost. Participating in what's called the means of grace, especially spending time with other believers, practicing spiritual disciplines, and participating in the sacraments of the church, believers grow in grace and in wholehearted love of God and neighbor.